Resistance: Fall of Man was a launch title for the PlayStation 3 back in 2006, and it was hyped up in its marketing cycle to be Sony's Halo killer. That, of course, didn't happen, but the cultural behemoth that is Halo is a high bar to set your sights on clearing. Resistance still spawned a moderately successful franchise of its own, became the first PS3 title to sell over 1 million copies, and ended up driving those sales figures to in excess of 2 million before it was all said and done. More importantly, it still holds up as a fun game almost 2 decades later, and despite appearing, on the surface, to be pretty similar to every other popular game at the time, it sported some fairly unique qualities. At first glance, Resistance is a generic military sci-fi first-person shooter with a washed-out color palette, a relic of the 7th generation of video game consoles. You play as a stoic, blank slate soldier who is part of an effort to fight back against aliens known as Chimera, who overwhelm humanity by turning humans into grotesque creatures to be used as foot soldiers, and everything in sight is either black, brown, gray, or pale yellow. The game really shines, however, with its vast array of creative weapons that make it special. Resistance was developed by Insomniac Games, creators of the Ratchet & Clank franchise, and Resistance is, in many ways, a big boy version of RNC. There's of course the standard automatic rifle, which also includes a grenade launcher, which happens to be a convenient suicide option if you ever just want to go back to the last checkpoint. Despite how basic it is, it's my bread and butter, especially if I'm trying to conserve my more powerful weapon's ammo. There's the Bullseye, which shoots plasma bolts and is carried by most of the Chimeran creatures. Its secondary fire is a homing target. Tagging enemies with this can serve a similar function to a sniper rifle, and can even be used to shoot enemies around walls and other barriers. It's a good example of how the game rewards you for using the environment to your advantage, and it's one of my favorite weapons to use on weaker enemies. There's a shotgun, like in every other FPS ever. Its secondary fire allows you to use more ammo to shoot from both barrels. It's nice for a close-range put-down. The Auger shoots through walls, and throws up shields which can also be fired through. This thing kicks ass. The sniper rifle is another staple of FPS games, but this one has a secondary fire option that can, for a limited time period, slow down the game and allow for more precise shots. I love the sniper rifle. The Hailstorm is good to use in cramped areas, as your shots will ricochet multiple times. It can also fire out the entire clip at once and become a turret. The Sapper is a weapon that I initially found pretty useless, but it's actually just very situational. I found that it works well on enemies that bum rush you due to their lack of firearms. There's a standard rocket launcher, which is also fitted with air brakes to allow for detonation before contact. Here's me accidentally killing myself with it.
Top 5, the bridge is set. We're nearly there.
The Reapers are dual-wield weapons, so there's no secondary fire. But just look at this. Ammo is pretty limited, but they're so much fun to use. The Arc Charger is good for narrow spaces. I'm not much of a fan of it personally, as that was the only real use I found for it during my playthrough. The Flamethrower also seemed situational to me. Its secondary fire is flammable gas. Finally, there's the Splitter. It's not acquired until very late in the game, and I never quite got the hang of it. It's supposed to be really powerful though, so on my next playthrough, whenever that is, I'm going to commit myself to mastering it. But that's not all. You also have a good old-fashioned melee attack for close encounters, as well as grenades. These include the standard frag grenade, as well as hedgehogs. These are super cool, even though I accidentally killed myself with them multiple times. The Backlash grenade creates a dome that turns enemy weapons against them. It's difficult to use, but oh so satisfying. Speaking of satisfying, there's also the air fuel grenade. Using these weapons well and using your environment to your advantage can lead to a lot of highlight reel-worthy kills. Another unique aspect is that there are a lot of horror elements injected into this FPS. These slow-moving enemies that will latch on and snap at you if you let them get too close really creep me out. This part of the game utilizes the motion capabilities of the PS3 controller. You have to shake it to get them off. And these lanky boys are pure nightmare fuel. Dead Space before Dead Space. Most of the game has no music, and that heightens the tension, while simultaneously making it all the more epic when music does come in. Too bad bringing up the weapon wheel pauses it. More on the horror elements. The Chimera creatures are pretty gnarly looking in general. Each species has a name, but I can't remember most of them. Their designs are very cool and creative. Some are outfitted with foul mouths. And even though the plot is nothing special, as I've previously alluded to, the lore the game creates does stand out. The level design is linear, using scenery as barriers, you know the drill. I nonetheless managed to get hopelessly lost once. Some of my favorite levels are the ones that allow you to go upward, adding greater dimension with multiple stories. Some even include light platforming that works surprisingly well. I also love the underground tunnels for the atmosphere they create. This level is very memorable too, but mainly due to my nostalgia for the now discontinued online multiplayer. Drop an F in the comments to pay respects. Not only was it a fun map, I have fond memories of finding the destructible windows so fascinating at the time. Ah, the good old days. The final level is absolutely hellish, just as it should be. It's tough as nails even at the beginning, giving a horde of enemies the high ground.
You underestimate my power!
To just annihilate you. This level functions as a gauntlet with all of the foes you've encountered earlier in the game, broken up by periodic mini-bosses as you trudge deeper and deeper. In lieu of a final boss, the game ends with a challenge to destroy the power core of the main Chimeran tower while you're being attacked from all angles. And holy cow is it hard. I've highlighted some of the ways each level is distinct from the previous ones, but all in all, they're fairly samey. Occasionally a vehicle segment is thrown in to break up the gameplay. This all-terrain combat vehicle is fun because it goes really fast. You can jump in and out of it as you please, and it's fun to waste Chimera underneath its tires. It can also be fun to run things over in the tank, but for the most part, it's just big and slow. The same goes for the Stalker, which also has a pretty awkward missile launch function. Thankfully, those segments are kept to a minimum in favor of focusing on the core gameplay, where the control is tight and refined. I've heard it argued that the control scheme is dated, but I had no problem with it. Having no sprint button is weird, but your guy moves quickly enough anyway. I played on medium difficulty, and found it to be an adequate challenge for someone who considers themselves pretty average at first-person shooters. The game is fairly generous on this skill level, with the amount of checkpoints, ammo, and health pods it gives you. The auto-heal function is incremental, meaning that your character will auto-heal to an extent, but will need a health pod once he's lost a full section of the health bar. I like this system. Resistance is a rare example of a game with an actual story reason behind its auto-healing function, as its protagonist is mysteriously the only person to have been infected with the Chimeran virus and survived, instead having gained some of the creature's abilities, auto-healing being one of them. The head and upper body shot detection is very solid, and while enemy AI can be dumb at times, it's mostly good for an early PS3 title. Sometimes enemies bum rush, sometimes they stay back, and they'll melee if they get close enough. Beyond the enemies, there are also occasional environmental hazards that help break up the gameplay, such as these radial mines you have to dodge by jumping or ducking, and these hedgehog mines that killed me many times. You receive allies in the game that you're responsible for protecting, but not in an annoying escort mission type of way. Instead, if you fail to protect them and they're killed, you'll simply have to continue playing without their help, rather than automatically fail your mission. That's the way it should be. As I've said, I consider myself an average FPS player, and I found the latter parts quite challenging. I'm not sure that I could have beaten this game on hard mode, and I imagine it would be a good challenge for an advanced player. I briefly mentioned multiplayer before. Nowadays, after the online servers have been shut down, it's nothing to write home about. Just a co-op version of the campaign mode, and no LAN support for multiplayer matches, so there is a maximum of 4 players. That's a shame because back in the online days I really enjoyed a lot of the maps, and the lack of LAN means replay value is obviously reduced. If you're getting this game today, you need to be getting it for the campaign, which thankfully does throw a couple of bones in the replay department. Some weapons can't be found until your second playthrough, and there are also these collectible documents to find, which I don't personally care about, but maybe someone does. 2 sequels were released on the PS3. It's been a long time since I've played either one, so everything I am about to say needs to be prefaced with a great big, if I remember correctly. Resistance 2 conformed to everything popular at the time and stripped away a lot of the things that made the original special. It's not a bad game, but I'd really only recommend it if you want to see how the post-credits cliffhanger in the first game is resolved. While the plot of the first game wasn't great or anything, it was decent enough to make one wonder what happened next if the lore grabbed them. Resistance 3, on the other hand, has a story that is more separated from the first 2, and also brings back some of the flair that made the first so great. I might play them again someday and give them a review. 2 handheld titles were also released, but I haven't played either, at least not yet. So yeah, Resistance Fall of Man is an arguably dated but fun game with no big flaws, but also only a couple of things that truly stand out. Those things are enough to make me personally love the game, and recommend it to any FPS fan with nostalgia for this era of gaming. It's a series that I'd love to see Insomniac Games return to someday, much like the series they possibly made reference to in the credits. Spyro fans with good memories may catch it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a thumbs up, subscribing, and ringing the bell to keep up with future videos. This has been a Leaky Faucet review. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.